breaking down the teams you're passionate about. This is Scotty G and Friends on 97.5, the KSL Sports Zone.
97.5, the KSL Sports Zone. Danny Ainge is going to join us coming up here in just a moment. Have a chance to chat with him as we have through the majority of the NBA season. Always good talking to him and getting his thoughts on where this Jazz team is as we come down the home stretch of the regular season. And then all eyes turn to the lottery balls and everything else that's going to come along with it, as I believe the draft lottery coming up on May 10th. That's going to be a big one for everybody involved on that one. So the Jazz, coming off that loss to the Cleveland Cavaliers, will be back in action coming up as they will play against Denver coming up tonight, then hit the road to Houston and take on Oklahoma City after that. Then New Orleans on the road. Memphis at home will be the final home game of the season. And then they finish off the year at Los Angeles against the Lakers. And then that's it. The season gets parked in the driveway, and we look ahead to the 26-27 campaign. But a whole lot of other things leading up to it, though, with the NBA draft and the lottery and everything else that comes along with it, with probably one of the most loaded drafts that we've seen in recent history. So that's going to be really fascinating to watch. And again, that's as, you know, I don't know. I are you as a listener kind of bored about the whole tanking thing? Because I am. Like, it doesn't feel like a story anymore. It just doesn't even feel like
it's so old.
It really
feels
is.
so old.
Like
Everything
old
about
and busted.
it, done talking about it, and everything with the NBA. It's rough.
It really is. It's like, okay, come on. You know, and I know Adam Silver sunk his teeth into it, and that's great. And once he latches on, then that's like the most important thing ever. Like, I get it, but come on. Like, it just seems really, really getting out of hand right now. All right, joining us now from the Utah Jazz, Danny Ainge, kind enough to hang out with us. Danny, how are you?
I'm great. How you doing, Scotty?
I'm doing great. You know, we were talking about Cody Williams and his development, and when you get to this point in the season, when you've dealt with the injuries that you're dealing with, and young guys have more opportunities, I don't anticipate there'll be a lot of games next year where he'll be able to take 22 attempts in a game. But with this larger sample size, how important is that for your understanding and your assessment of his development?
I think it's huge. I think, you know, Cody missed like the end of the season last year when he would have had some similar opportunities. He had mono. But, Cody has had some great games, as has a lot of our young guys. And it's been fun to watch his development and just how much more comfortable he feels. I think that Will and our coaching staff has done a wonderful, wonderful job with Cody and getting him focused on the things he does good while they're bringing him along with the things he doesn't do as well. And I think Cody has been really fun to watch.
There's a lot of conversations about how players can develop during an off season and the time they spend in the gym. Can players also develop skill sets in the course of a regular season?
Absolutely. Just because opportunity, and every player is different. Like, you can't put all players in similar categories. Mm-hmm. But I feel like Cody is a very conscientious kid and player. And, you know, he hasn't felt super comfortable, you know, playing with all of our star players yet. But he's getting there, and he was getting there before he's had his recent run too, where he does get a little bit more of a green light. I remember when I was playing in Boston, Scotty, like we used to go to shoot around when Bird wasn't going to play or McHale wasn't going to play. We'd have shoot around. We would divvy up his shots. We'd have shooting contests to just say, you know, okay, I get 5 of McHale's shots, or I get 4 of Bird's shots tonight. And those were fun nights. You know, we don't want that to happen in the playoffs, but sometimes, you know, getting those opportunities and being able to spread your wings a little bit are fun for the players.
How do you think he's improved defensively over the last couple of years?
I think he's been really good defensively most of this year. And, I've heard my coaches say he's the best defensive player on our team more than a few times. So I think Cody he's still going to get a lot better too. I don't think he's anywhere near where he's going to be.
Danny Ainge, kind enough to join us, talking Utah Jazz basketball. Ace Bailey getting a lot of opportunities out there as well. when you look back at his rookie year, how do you feel like he's acclimated to the professional game?
Yeah, I think similar in different ways. I mean, his strengths are more as a primary scorer, and I think that he's got those opportunities more as, Lowry's not on the court and Keontae's not on the court, but he's shown signs of that most of his life. And but he does get more freedom, and it's not as you're not as conscientious as it. Again, like I've experienced this before. Like when I play with Bird and McHale, I'm not the same player, because you got to do different roles and you got to play your role on a team. And so both of these guys and all of these young players, like they have to find their place. They have to be able to play with everybody and with anybody, and that usually starts with defense, rebounding, and playing the right way. And I'm confident these guys will.
Watching Kennedy Chandler play 40 minutes the other night, what kind of a mindset do you have to have as a player when you sign that 10-day contract? Because, you're going to have limited opportunities to make that impression, but you want to be a team guy, but you also want to get some stats up. How can a guy be successful and make sure he's got that right mindset coming into a situation like that?
Well, it's kind of fun watching the guys that have come in on 10-day contracts. Starting with Mo Bamba and, going down the line for the guys. I think we've had 4 10-day contracts this year. It's fun watching because they are hungry. They are playing different, playing better even than they played in the G League. They are, this is a really, really unique opportunity for them to showcase their talents, not just for the Utah Jazz, but for the whole league. And so it's a really important time for those guys. And it's been fun to watch their enthusiasm and their energy.
So overall, when you've got guys that are coming back from injury and you're trying to get them through it, is it hard to, when a guy's out with an injury, to try to keep him engaged with the team? Or do you just want him focused on, hey, you get better, you stay on track, and then we'll work you back in when that time is right? Because, you don't want to leave a player behind as you go throughout the course of a season, but you also need to have them focused on the right things.
Yeah, no, getting our guys healthy. I mean, it started with Walker, at the beginning of the season, and, keeping him acclimated, keeping him with the team and being around the guys. And same thing as you go down with Nurk and Lowry and Keontae, all of them, like they're very much engaged with day-to-day team activities and part of the team and working on what they can work on in their rehab and in their development as strength and shooting, et cetera.
I know the time is going to come, and I know you keep those relatively quiet when you do bring in players for workouts for the upcoming NBA draft. I assume those will probably begin here pretty soon. Do you like casting a wide net and bringing in as many people as you possibly can? Yeah,
I mean, I do. I think that every year is unique and every year is different in that regard, and how wide of a net you put out there. But, our focus will be on the top part of the draft. And, but there's a lot more names that are in our minds right now than are just on, every mock draft's mind.
When you're looking at guys that you potentially might be signing that are in the G League or the 10-day, is it advantageous sometimes when you've already had them in for a workout, maybe a year, 2 years ago, to go back and reference the notes and the video on that?
Yeah, but I think most of the time we're looking for a player to just see that we haven't seen as much, and we're just looking for different types of players. Like we brought in a couple guys initially with Mo. Like we like Mo, we like what he's done for us this year in the G League, et cetera. But we were bringing in some defensive-minded guys just because we want our defense to get better, and so the defensive-minded guys, they actually have helped our defense be even better and helped some of the guys that weren't as focused on defense as they needed to be by seeing a little bit like Chris Dunn did for us a couple of years ago. So, yeah, we're just looking for guys that really want it, play hard. They can inspire everybody.
Give me your thoughts on Will Hardy and how he's been. I mean, obviously he's done a tremendous job. The situation hasn't been ideal in terms of winning games at a super high level that he'd like. But when you evaluate coaches around the NBA and you talk to people outside of Salt Lake City that know Will Hardy and know his capabilities, people have just talked about what a masterful job he's given the situation he's in.
Yeah, we're huge fans of Will's. What he's dealt with is tough. It's hard. It's not what every coach dreams of. And we're really excited for next year. And we think we have a great coach ready to lead our team. And he has a lot of respect for everybody in our organization. That's for sure.
So how much I know you're at conference tournaments and NCAA tournament games, and you're watching a lot of games, just scouting players. But just as a guy that loves the game of basketball, were you, and a guy that was a former coach, were you cringing at the end of that Duke game, like all of us were?
Yeah, I don't really. That was a tough one for Duke to lose. Like it was like I'm not rooting for Duke necessarily or UConn, but I just like that, like what an amazing comeback victory. And it's a great feeling to have if you're UConn, but that's a tough one for Duke. And so you go, oh man, that's too bad. Because, I know the coach and a couple of the players and one of the fathers that's sitting in the stands. Pretty good. So that was a tough one for them.
As a player and as a coach, do the losses sting more than the wins feel good?
Yeah, I wish that wasn't that way. I mean, there's been some amazing victories that you don't ever forget. But, yeah, I think that they do. I think that losses are a little more painful than the joy you get from winning because you just expect to win. And and that's a big moment. And so anything less is kind of a memory that you don't want to remember, but for whatever reason, they seem to last a little bit longer.
When obviously there's always going to be the elite one and dones, and we know who they are that will go to college for a year and then make that transition into the NBA and be just fine. They'll be great players. But have you seen better development from players, or maybe you don't have the sample size yet, you need to wait a couple more years, with guys maybe realizing, okay, I can make more money by going back to college than I can being a second-round pick or an undrafted free agent and really testing my waters in the NBA levels. I can go back and make more money. And are you seeing maybe more skilled players coming into the league because of that as opposed to maybe 3 or 4 years ago?
That's a good question, Scotty. I haven't really studied that much. I mean, yeah, there's more money to stay, and I think it feels like second-round picks usually are the people we're talking about. But I think that players that are in the first round are usually coming out, and especially players in the middle to top of the first round are coming out. But sometimes that's the only opportunity. Like players don't just necessarily get a lot better in college. And because the game is so different, and when you're older, you have a big advantage. Just how much the game has changed. It used to be when you come into college, like maybe there's 1 or 2 players that left your graduating high school class and entered the NBA early over a 4-year period, and then it went to 4. Maybe that started as freshmen, and then maybe it went to 8 or 10, and now there's just a lot more. And so I think as you're becoming a senior, and in a lot of cases in the world today, you're 5th-year seniors, and you're almost 24 years old, it's a big advantage. Some of the freshmen right now are playing against guys that are 5 years older.
Yeah.
And that is a huge advantage, just physically, emotionally. And so, like, it's not, I think that the physical strength of that age difference and experience helps a little bit. But I think that the young players that come into the NBA, a lot of them do get a lot better and early, as we see. We've just been talking about Cody. should be a junior right now, and Ace should be a freshman right now. Basically, he's about the same age as most of the freshmen in this. He's younger than a few of the freshmen in the lottery this year. And so, like, those guys just have a lot of good steps ahead of them.
I was talking to a coach up at Utah State about this a few weeks ago, and they had mentioned that how difficult it is for guys. And we were talking about Sam Merrill and Nemish Keita, and how they had opportunities in the league and then had to go back down to the G League. And I'm sure, especially with Nemi, there were a lot of opportunities to go to Europe and make good money. But the thought of, I'm going to stick it out and just keep this dream alive as long as I possibly can before, throwing in the white flag and going overseas and playing there. Is that come down to your agent a lot for these players to say, okay, you know what, this is probably the best bet, or hang in there, I still think you've got a shot in the league? Because obviously their patience is paid off in folds for those guys.
Yeah, so I think it probably has most to do with the players themselves and the risk they're willing to take, because agents will give them options. Here's an option. What do you want? You can make double the money if you go overseas, or you can stay here and make this, and the likelihood of getting to the NBA is not very good, but you still have a chance and hope. And anyway, those guys, it's worked out really well for us. It's been wonderful to see their development. Well, you've been up at Utah State there, so you've been able to watch these guys and their careers, and it's always fun to see that.
Yeah.
Guys that want to come back to school, like I'm always for the guys that want to go back to school, because there is a big learning process and a learning curve. At the same time, going to the G League like Sam and Keita did, and there's value in it. Like I was mentioning, Chris Dunn. Like, Chris was in the G League for 3 years after being the number 5 pick, and when we called him up here and signed him to that contract, he said, "DA, I'm never going back. I'm never going back." And he played like that, and he has continued to play like that in LA. And you appreciate that the hard times that you've gone through, and those opportunities that they see. And so there's great value in the G League for many players.
When you're evaluating a player, and last question, I promise, I just love picking your brain on these things. When you're evaluating a player at the collegiate level, and a kid has a chance to be at a school, because you and I, we talked about this a couple of weeks ago. If you're good enough, the scouts are going to find you wherever you're at. It doesn't matter. If you're deciding between going in the transfer portal and going to a team that is going to pay you very well, but you're going to be among a lot of star players on that team, and the opportunities may not be as high, but again, you'll get a lot of exposure and you'll make some money and you'll play some high-profile games. Is it better, and I know everything's a little bit different, but is it better for a player to go that angle or stay at the level he's at, obviously take significantly less money, but certainly have more opportunities and be the face of that team?
Yeah, I think that it depends on the player. Like we talked about the year or the G League for a lot of the young guys, I think it depends on the personality of the player and his confidence and willing to take a risk. I mean, if you do transfer, you're taking a risk that it's not going to be as good as what you have. And you go play in a better, quote, a blue blood program or some bigger, better audience watching you. From the NBA standpoint, we're going to find you wherever you are. But opportunity to play, just like we talked about with the young players in the NBA, but on our team, like the opportunity to play, you get a chance to show a little bit more than if you go play for a powerhouse and you get lost in the shuffle, or you're just one of another group of guys. Those are decisions that every player has to decide. And I wish that those decisions were only made based on their careers and their futures. But unfortunately, money plays a big part of that right now.
Yeah. Danny, I've kept you way too long. I appreciate your time as always. Great insight, analysis as always, and look forward to another chat here soon.
All right, Scotty. Good catching up.
You got it. Danny Ainge, right here on 97.5, the KSL Sports Zone. Such an honor, privilege to be able to chat with a legend like that and get his insight on the game. All right, take a break. Come back. What you may have missed straight ahead right here on The Zone.